Ethan Wells had never imagined that his first diplomatic mission outside Earth would be to a palace floating in the stars. The Xereth Dominion's palace ship was a marvel of engineering, a massive structure that shimmered with energy fields and glowed with 1,000 lights. Humans had only heard of the Xereth through intergalactic broadcasts, but now Ethan was here in person, wearing a formal uniform and trying to look confident. He adjusted the collar of his tunic nervously as he entered the grand hall. The ceiling stretched far above, with translucent panels showing distant stars and nebulae. Alien dignitaries from dozens of planets filled the hall, their eyes turning toward the humans who had just arrived. Ethan felt the weight of expectation pressing down on him. Humanity was young in the galactic community, and he represented them as one of the few humans invited to this peace ceremony. At the far end of the hall, on a raised platform, stood the Xereth Queen, Seraphina Valrin. She was taller than any human, with shimmering silver skin that reflected the lights of the palace. Her eyes glowed a soft violet, and her presence radiated authority. Ethan could feel her gaze across the hall, sharp but curious. He reminded himself to stay calm. This was diplomacy, not a chance to be starstruck. The ceremony began with a low hum as energy conduits along the walls lit up. Ethan watched as Queen Seraphina approached a golden pedestal at the center of the room. Resting atop it was an ornate ring, pulsing with a soft blue light. The alien attendants spoke in musical tones, their words flowing like waves. Ethan could not understand them, but their meaning was clear. The ring was a symbol of unity, a relic of the Xereth people meant to bond leaders for peace. Ethan stepped forward as part of the delegation. The Queen's attendants carefully moved aside to let him approach the pedestal. The moment his fingers brushed the ring, the blue light flared brighter. Ethan jerked back, startled. Around him, whispers of astonishment rippled through the crowd. The Queen's eyes widened slightly, and the energy around them shifted. Before Ethan could comprehend what had happened, a beam of light enveloped him, and he felt himself lifted off the ground. When the light faded, he found himself standing in a private chamber with the Queen. The walls glowed softly, displaying constellations and planetary systems. Ethan blinked, trying to process the sudden change. The Queen regarded him calmly. "The ring has chosen you," she said in a voice that was both commanding and gentle. Her words seemed to echo slightly, as if the room itself was amplifying them. "You are now the Unity pair. This bond will symbolize peace between your species and mine. It is a sacred responsibility." Ethan swallowed hard. "Chosen me? I don't understand. I'm just a human diplomat. I've never—" She raised a hand, silencing him. "It does not matter. The ring decides based on qualities beyond your understanding. Courage, empathy, honesty, qualities humans rarely show in galactic matters. That is why it chose you." Ethan's mind raced. A bond, chosen? The words made no sense, and yet, looking at the Queen, he sensed the truth of her statement. The ring was no ordinary object. It pulsed with energy that seemed alive. "What do I have to do?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The Queen's violet eyes studied him carefully. She took a step closer, and Ethan felt a sudden pressure, a sense that his next decision could ripple across the galaxy. "Put the ring on and tell everyone we are married, human," she said. Her tone was calm but firm, leaving no room for argument. Ethan froze. Married? The word echoed in his mind. He had never considered marriage, certainly not with an alien queen. Yet her eyes did not waver. They held a quiet expectation. He realized that refusing could have consequences far beyond his own life. Diplomacy was at stake. Humanity's reputation, the fragile peace between species, everything could collapse if he failed. I can't just— I don't know if he stammered. "You can," she interrupted softly. "You must. Not for me, but for the galaxy. Your species is young. We watch you carefully. Do not fail now." Ethan's heart pounded. He had been trained for diplomacy, for negotiations, for careful words. But nothing in his training had prepared him for this. He looked at the ring again. It seemed to glow brighter, almost urging him forward. A sense of calm spread over him, replacing fear with resolve. He took a deep breath and placed the ring on his finger. A jolt of energy coursed through him, but it was not painful. Instead, it felt as if the ring was connecting to him, acknowledging his choice, sealing a bond that neither of them fully understood yet. The Queen nodded, a faint smile touching her lips. Good, now speak the words. Ethan cleared his throat, his voice steadier than he expected. I declare that we are bonded, Queen Seraphina. Together, we will show unity between our peoples. The chamber shimmered as the bond activated fully. Images of stars, planets, and civilizations flashed briefly, as if the universe itself had acknowledged the pairing. Ethan felt a strange connection to the Queen, not just physically but in thought and intention. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but he knew that their actions would now influence each other in ways that would shape the future. The Queen stepped closer and placed a hand on his shoulder. Remember, this is only the beginning. You are not just a human diplomat anymore. You are a symbol. Many will doubt you, even among my own people. You must act wisely and you must act bravely. Ethan nodded. I'll do my best. For humanity and for peace. The Queen studied him for a moment, then gestured toward a hidden panel in the wall. It slid open to reveal a corridor leading back to the main hall. Come, let the others see the bond. You must appear confident. Show them that the union is real, even if your heart is still uncertain. As they walked through the corridor, Ethan tried to steady his nerves. He glanced at the Queen. She moved with grace and authority, but there was something almost human in the way she considered each step, each gesture. Perhaps that was why the ring had chosen him, because both of them could bridge the gap between species. When they emerged back into the grand hall, whispers rippled through the crowd. The alien dignitaries observed him closely, and Ethan could feel their skepticism. Humans were not typically part of such high-level bonds, and some of the Zyreth council members were frowning. Lord Zelthor, a tall, sharp-eyed alien with a reputation for political cunning, raised an eyebrow and muttered something to his advisors. Ethan swallowed, forcing a calm smile. He raised his hand, showing the ring that now shone brightly on his finger. As of this moment, we are bonded, he announced. Together we will work for peace and unity. A silence followed, heavy with tension. Then, slowly, the dignitaries began to nod, murmuring among themselves. Some were skeptical, others curious, but all were watching him. He realized that every word, every gesture mattered. He was no longer just a diplomat. He was a symbol, a human who had stepped into a role far beyond what he had imagined. Queen Seraphina's eyes met his, and for a brief moment, Ethan felt a reassurance that steadied him. She did not need him to be perfect. She needed him to try, to show humanity's worth. The ceremony continued, but Ethan's mind was already racing ahead. The challenges would come, he knew. There would be tests of loyalty, of judgment, perhaps even danger. But for now he had taken the first step. The ring was on his finger, the bond was acknowledged, and the galaxy was watching. As the crowd applauded, Ethan realized something profound. Humans were not known across the stars for strength or power, but for courage, for the ability to step into the unknown and rise to challenges. And now, in this moment, he understood that even a single human could make a difference, not through force, but through courage, honesty, and the willingness to act when it mattered most. Queen Seraphina leaned slightly toward him and whispered, just loud enough for him to hear, "This is only the beginning. Be ready, human. Many will test you, but I believe in your heart." Ethan nodded, gripping the edge of his tunic. He did not yet fully understand the bond or what the future held, but one thing was certain. He would not falter. Humanity had a chance to prove itself, and he would be the one to lead the way, side by side with the Queen of the Zyreth. And as the stars outside the palace ship stretched endlessly into the galaxy, Ethan Wells felt the weight of destiny on his shoulders, a weight he was finally ready to carry. Ethan Wells had barely settled into the weight of the ring on his finger when the next challenge appeared. The grand palace ship of the Zyreth Dominion was filled with countless eyes, all watching his every move. Rumors of a human bonded to the Queen spread like wildfire through the corridors and chambers. Some whispered in awe, some in disbelief, and others in suspicion. The Queen, Seraphina Valrin, had escorted him to a private chamber for a moment of respite. The soft violet glow of the room reflected on Ethan's face as he tried to steady his thoughts. He had survived the initial shock of the bond, but the real challenge had only begun. "You will need to attend the Grand Council tomorrow," Seraphina said, her voice calm yet commanding. "Many will doubt you. Some will try to embarrass you. You must appear confident and prepared." Ethan swallowed hard. The Grand Council was composed of the most influential alien leaders across dozens of systems. They were cunning, sharp, and not known for kindness toward outsiders, especially humans. I don't even know their customs, he admitted, his voice trembling slightly. You will learn, she replied. Observe, listen, and respond honestly. Your strength is not in power or experience, but in your humanity. Remember that. He nodded, feeling the pressure of expectation yet reassured by her words. That evening he studied the records Serafina's aides provided. Alien customs, diplomatic gestures, etiquette, and protocols were carefully detailed. Ethan tried to memorize each, but there was so much. Still, he understood one thing clearly. Sincerity was more powerful than perfection. The next day, the Grand Council convened in the palace's central hall, a vast circular chamber with a holographic map of the galaxy hovering at its center. Alien leaders from hundreds of species had assembled, their appearances ranging from insectoid to ethereal. All eyes turned toward the Queen and her human partner. Ethan could feel their gaze, heavy with skepticism. One of the council members, Lord Zelthor, stood out immediately. Tall and angular, with eyes sharp enough to cut glass, he was known as a cunning strategist and political manipulator. His gaze bore into Ethan, and a low murmur spread through the chamber. Serafina addressed the council first, her voice echoing with authority. We gathered to discuss the rising tensions along the northern trade routes. Human allies have joined us, and it is time to consider new perspectives. Ethan felt every eye on him. He had prepared for introductions, yet the weight of expectation pressed on his chest. He took a deep breath and stepped forward. I am Ethan Wells, he said, voice steady despite the nerves. I come not to claim wisdom or superiority, but to offer human insight. Sometimes the simplest solutions are overlooked, and honesty can prevent great conflict. A few council members exchanged doubtful glances, but others leaned forward curious. Lord Zelthor's frown deepened, clearly unimpressed. He spoke first, his voice dripping with disdain. And what makes a human think they can contribute to matters of galactic importance? Ethan met his gaze directly, refusing to flinch. Humans are young among the stars, yes, he said, but we value life and cooperation. We have survived challenges that required creativity and empathy, qualities that can help resolve conflict. The council whispered among themselves, some intrigued by the human's confidence. Serafina's hand rested lightly on his arm, a silent reassurance. Ethan felt a surge of courage. He might not be like the seasoned alien diplomats, but he could use what humans had always excelled at, ingenuity and honesty. The discussion moved on, and soon a tense issue arose. A dispute between two alien factions over a mining colony. Weapons were being stockpiled, and diplomacy seemed on the verge of collapse. Lord Zelthor leaned toward Ethan with a sneer. You speak as if you understand our ways. What can a human do that we have not already considered? Ethan looked at the holographic map, noticing a pattern the council had missed. Using a simple human tactic of connecting dots that others overlooked, he suggested a trade agreement that would benefit both factions and prevent conflict. It was straightforward, logical, and fair. There was a moment of silence. Then murmurs of approval spread through the chamber. One council member nodded appreciatively. It is impractical, she admitted. And effective. Lord Zelthor's eyes narrowed, but he said nothing. Ethan realized that he had passed his first test, not by impressing them with alien customs, but by being human. After the council adjourned, Serafina led him to the palace gardens. The garden was vast, with glowing plants and streams that reflected starlight. Ethan's shoulders relaxed slightly. You did well today, Serafina said, a rare smile appearing on her face. I think I'm just lucky, Ethan admitted. Or maybe I'm just lucky to have you guiding me. She shook her head. It is not luck. You have something few species have: honesty, courage, and a willingness to act when others hesitate. The ring chose you because you can bridge worlds in ways I cannot. Do not underestimate yourself. Ethan felt a sense of pride mixed with awe. He had come to this mission nervous and uncertain, yet now he felt the stirrings of purpose. Perhaps humanity could be more than observers in the galaxy. They could be leaders, allies, and problem solvers. Over the next few weeks, Ethan and Serafina attended numerous ceremonies, negotiations, and public appearances. Each event was a test of patience, wit, and understanding. Some moments were awkward. Ethan's human habits drew quiet laughter from children and some council members. But more often, his honesty and unexpected solutions impressed alien leaders. One day a crisis erupted in the palace. A faction of young Zyrith nobles, resentful of a human holding a position of influence, staged a public challenge. They confronted Ethan during a ceremonial parade, demanding that he prove his loyalty and intelligence through a series of trials. The first trial tested knowledge of alien languages and customs. Ethan struggled at first but remembered the advice Seraphina had given him. Honesty and clarity were more important than perfection. He answered questions truthfully and logically, admitting when he did not know something. The nobles were taken aback by his candor, a trait rarely seen in their society. The second trial involved a moral dilemma. A small group of civilians from a neighboring planet had been trapped during a trade dispute. The challenge was to propose a solution that would satisfy all parties. Ethan suggested a compromise using mediation, resources, and shared governance. His solution was simple but fair, emphasizing empathy and practicality over dominance. By the third trial, Ethan had gained confidence. The nobles presented a complex logistical problem, intending to expose his inexperience. But Ethan applied human creativity, connecting ideas, visualizing outcomes, and using logic in ways alien leaders often overlooked. The crowd watched as he solved the problem efficiently, earning a rare round of applause. Seraphina observed quietly from the sidelines, a look of pride on her face. She had known Ethan could rise to the challenge, but seeing him do so in public, winning respect without arrogance, reassured her that the bond was more than ceremonial. As the weeks passed, the staged alliance between human and queen began to feel natural. Ethan learned the nuances of alien etiquette, while Seraphina discovered the value of human perspectives. They laughed at cultural misunderstandings, shared quiet moments of reflection, and grew to rely on each other in ways that extended beyond duty. Yet, not all challenges were diplomatic. Lord Zelthor and other skeptics continued to plot, spreading rumors and questioning Ethan's abilities. There were whispered debates in council chambers, attempts to undermine the bond, and even subtle threats to humanity's role in the galaxy. One evening, Seraphina summoned Ethan to a balcony overlooking the stars. The city lights of the palace ship twinkled below like a field of jewels. "You have done well," she said softly, "but the true test is yet to come. There are forces in this galaxy who will not accept a human in this position. They will try to challenge us directly. You must be ready." Ethan nodded, feeling the gravity of her words. "I understand, but I want to try. I want to show that humans can make a difference. Not with weapons or power, but with thought, courage, and cooperation." Seraphina smiled faintly. "That is why the ring chose you. Remember, you are not alone. We are bonded. Your decisions will affect both of us, but so will mine. Together we are stronger than you realize." Ethan looked out at the stars, the infinite expanse reminding him of the challenges ahead. He thought of Earth, of the people who had sent him here to represent humanity, and of the responsibility now resting on his shoulders. The path would be difficult, but he was determined. In the days that followed, the palace ship faced increasing pressure from hostile factions questioning the bond. Yet Ethan, armed with human ingenuity, honesty, and empathy, continued to find solutions where others saw only problems. Each success built credibility, not only for him but for... By the end of the second month, the galaxy had begun to notice. Humans, once considered minor players, were now seen as capable of leadership and problem-solving. Ethan realized that the bond was more than political theater. It was a chance humanity could stand among the stars, not through strength alone, but through character, courage, and wisdom. And as he stood beside Queen Seraphina in the palace gardens one quiet evening, he felt a quiet determination settle in his heart. Challenges would come, doubts would rise, and dangers would test them both. But Togi, the palace ship of the Zyrith Dominion, shimmered against the backdrop of countless stars, a beacon of unity and power. Ethan Wells stood on the balcony of the Queen's chambers, gazing at the galaxy spread before him. The events of the past months had changed him. From a nervous human diplomat, he had grown into a symbol of hope, a representative of humanity capable of facing challenges no one expected him to overcome. Yet he knew the greatest trial was still ahead. Rumors of his bond with Queen Seraphina had reached every corner of the galaxy. Not everyone accepted it. Hostile factions, threatened by the unprecedented alliance, had begun to conspire. Lord Zelthor's opposition had grown bolder, rallying alien leaders who saw humans as weak and unworthy of influence. Intelligence reports warned of a direct challenge, a public trial of loyalty to test Ethan's commitment and worthiness. The trial was to take place in the Central Forum, the largest hall on the Palace ship, where leaders from dozens of systems would witness the events. Ethan knew this would not be a simple examination. The trial would test his knowledge, morality, strategic thinking, and courage, not against physical threats alone, but against scrutiny, deception, and expectation. As they entered the hall, a hush fell over the crowd. Alien dignitaries of every form gathered, their expressions sharp and calculating. Ethan felt the weight of their judgment but held his head high. He had learned much since the day he first wore the ring. He would rely on his humanity, his creativity, and his integrity. That was his strength. The trial began with questions about interstellar law and trade negotiations. The council members asked complicated, multi-layered questions designed to confuse outsiders. Many humans might have faltered, but Ethan relied on clear logic and honesty. When he did not know an answer, he admitted it, offering thoughtful suggestions instead. The aliens, unused to such candor, began to murmur in surprise. Next came a moral test. A simulated crisis was presented. A dispute over a newly discovered planet rich in rare minerals. Two alien species claimed ownership, and the conflict threatened to escalate into war. Ethan proposed a solution rooted in compromise and shared benefit, suggesting joint governance, resource-sharing agreements, and cultural exchange programs. His plan was simple but elegant, prioritizing fairness and long-term peace over short-term advantage. Some council members frowned, unconvinced. Lord Zelthor in particular scowled. He demanded a test of courage. "If you are to bond with our queen," he said, "prove that you can act decisively when lives are at risk." "Show us your resolve." Ethan felt a surge of determination. Courage was not just about bravado or fighting. It was about action under pressure. Almost immediately, alarms blared throughout the palace. A hostile faction had breached security, attempting to seize control of the palace ship. Panic rippled through the crowd. The dignitaries froze, unsure how to respond. Without hesitation, Ethan acted. He quickly assessed the situation and directed civilians to safety, using public address systems and holographic maps to coordinate evacuation routes. He guided Seraphina's security forces, suggesting strategic placements that neutralized the attackers without unnecessary violence. His human instincts for improvisation and cooperation proved invaluable. The palace ship's corridors were chaotic, but Ethan remained calm. He noticed that some attackers were not fully armed. They relied on intimidation and confusion, using simple tactics and diversion, controlled communication, and coordinated movement. He helped turn the tide. Security forces gained the upper hand and the attackers were subdued. Throughout the crisis, Seraphina observed Ethan closely. He had faced danger not with reckless strength but with intelligence, empathy, and decisive action. She realized fully that the ring had chosen wisely. Humanity had a strength the galaxy often underestimated: the ability to remain calm under pressure, to think creatively, and to act for the greater good. Once the situation was under control, the council reconvened. Ethan stood beside Seraphina, the glow of the ring on his finger now symbolic of both responsibility and achievement. The crowd, previously skeptical, now looked at him with a mix of respect and astonishment. Even Lord Zelthor could not conceal his grudging acknowledgement of Ethan's capabilities. "You have proven your loyalty," Seraphina announced, her voice carrying across the hall, "not through force nor by titles, but through courage, wisdom, and humanity. You have acted in the best interests of peace and unity, and for that you have my respect and trust." Ethan felt a surge of relief and pride. He had faced the most severe test of his life and had passed not by imitating alien ways, but by relying on what made humans unique: empathy, problem-solving, and integrity. But the final challenge came unexpectedly. Lord Zelthor, refusing to concede, attempted one last maneuver. He revealed secret communications suggesting a betrayal, that Ethan had somehow manipulated events for human advantage. Gasps filled the hall. Some council members murmured doubts. The tension was palpable. Ethan stepped forward, his voice steady and calm. "I have acted only with truth and reason," he said. "Every decision I made prioritized safety, fairness, and the well-being of all involved. I am human, yes, but I stand here not for myself alone, but as a representative of humanity and as a partner to the Queen. My actions speak for themselves. He provided detailed explanations of his decisions during the attack, showing step by step how each choice had protected lives and upheld justice. He acknowledged moments of uncertainty but emphasized the principles that guided him. The clarity and honesty in his words left the council no room for doubt. Serafina stepped forward, placing her hand lightly on his shoulder. Ethan's decisions saved this palace and many lives. He acted not for advantage, but for duty. I chose him because of his character, and today he has proven it beyond question. A silence fell over the hall, followed by nods of approval and murmurs of admiration. Even the skeptical members of the council began to acknowledge that humanity could hold a meaningful place in galactic affairs. Lord Zelthor, defeated but composed, bowed slightly. The challenge was over. As the trial concluded, the council formally recognized the bond between Ethan and Serafina. It was no longer a symbolic act or political necessity. It was a partnership grounded in trust, mutual respect, and shared commitment to peace. The galaxy had witnessed a human rise to a position of influence not through power or aggression, but through courage, intelligence, and integrity. Later, in the quiet of the Queen's private garden, Ethan and Serafina walked among glowing plants and softly babbling streams. The events of the day weighed on him, but a sense of accomplishment filled his chest. "You exceeded all expectations today," Serafina said softly, her violet eyes glowing with admiration. "Not because you followed rules perfectly, but because you stayed true to yourself. You showed the galaxy what humans can achieve." Ethan looked at her, feeling the bond between them deeper than ever before. "I didn't do it alone. You trusted me, guided me, and gave me a chance. I only did what humans do best. We try, we think, we care. And sometimes that is enough to make a difference." Serafina smiled. "It is more than enough. Together we will continue to show that strength comes not only from power, but from character, wisdom, and courage. You are not just my bonded partner. You are a symbol of hope for all who doubt humanity's worth." Ethan nodded, feeling a profound sense of purpose. The galaxy was vast, filled with challenges and threats, but he knew now that humanity had a role to play, not as conquerors, but as innovators, problem solvers, and peacemakers. Through courage, ingenuity, and integrity, humans could influence the stars and shape the future in ways no one had anticipated. Days turned into weeks, and the palace ship settled into a new rhythm. Humans were now recognized as valuable allies in galactic politics. Ethan continued to learn, grow, and contribute, always guided by the principles that had carried him through the trials. His partnership with Serafina evolved from a ceremonial bond into genuine friendship and mutual respect, inspiring both species to see unity in a new light. One evening, as they stood on the observation deck watching a nebula slowly rotate in the void, Serafina spoke quietly. "Ethan, I asked you to put the ring on and speak the words expecting ceremony. I never anticipated that it would lead to this, that a human could show such strength, wisdom, and courage." Ethan smiled faintly. "I didn't expect it either, but I believe humans have always had these qualities. We just needed the chance to prove them. You gave me that chance, and together we showed the galaxy what is possible." Serafina nodded. "And now the galaxy will remember, not just the bond of the ring, but the bond of trust, respect, and courage that it represents. You have set a precedent that will inspire generations to come." Ethan looked at the stars, feeling the enormity of their journey. He had started as a nervous diplomat from Earth, unsure and overwhelmed. Now he was a figure of hope, a human who had risen to meet the galaxy's challenges through intellect, integrity, and heart. He had proven that, as the lights of the palace ship reflected off the nebula, Ethan knew this was only the beginning. Challenges would continue and new threats would emerge. But humanity had shown its worth, and he had shown what a single human could achieve when guided by courage, honesty, and the